Welcome to another episode of The Strongman Say. I am back, which is lovely, but very, very excited to listen to. By the time this is released, I will have listened to the episode with Australia's strongest president, Mason, and
President Trump.
President Trump makes strongman great again.
Yeah.
And Leigh Shaw. But today we've got a fair bit to talk about. This weekend was like a great weekend for strongman in Australia. But I reckon this month in Oz Strongman is, well, I mean, busy for us, but it's a really good month for strongman in Australia, yeah?
This is when, I guess, probably the bigger qualifiers besides Queensland's all comes to a head. Yep. And it's the part where there's only a few spots left.
Yeah, it's heating up
so
because...
you're like, who's gonna travel where now to keep getting those final spots?
Which makes it exciting because it's like, it's that end of the year. They're two very different comps. Right, which I really like. The last two qualifiers that we have coming up are ACT Strongest and TAS Strongest.
Yep.
ACT's has 70 athletes at an expo, and I mean, I can only hazard a guess why there's so many athletes there, but I can tell you, I think it's yoke, it's Viking press, it's arm over arm pull, it's a deadlift rising bar to reps, and it's a stone run. It's fucking strongman.
Yeah, it's standard.
Do you know what I mean? It's strongman. It's loaded well for that intermediate level. Do you know what I mean? Like the loads are lighter than some of the qualifiers, I think. You know, but like in the sweet spot. Like I felt like Vick's was on the lighter side. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, but like the yoke was relatively heavy. But the ACTs is kind of like a real good sweet spot.
Yeah, I think the Viking being light is always good as well.
Yeah, more reps.
Yeah, like whoever wins is going to get 12 or 15.
Yep.
But everyone should get something.
Yep, 100%. And like it's a rep event.
And then TAS Strongest.
Totally flip.
Not in an you could probably put like a circus tent over TAS Strongest, and I think it would like mesh well with the vibe.
Yeah.
Like stone to shoulder, behind the neck, silver
we could have
dollar.
another tent next door and have it like a freak show. Like
that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, because it's in TAS. 2 heads next door.
That could be
Give
it.
us $1, come look. Yeah. But then it's like log into yoke, or like yoke into log, like behind the neck press, duck walk frame. Yeah. So it's a completely different comp.
Yep.
The person who would win ACT will not win TAS.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like skill based versus Mong strength. Like not Mong strength, but you know what I mean? Like it's just very, very different.
Yeah.
And like athletic versus kind of like slightly more static. The arm over arm pull's only 8 meters. Like,
yeah, that thing's heavy too.
Yeah, it's heavy. And it grabs.
Yeah.
So 2 very, very different comps. But I reckon there's 70 people in that ACT comp because it's the most appealing comp, because it's the most standard and the most strongman and the easiest to train for, but the funnest to train for.
It's also easy to get to. You've got everyone that did Sydney or is in Sydney base that will come down for it. It's easy to fly to.
Yep. Very true too. But yeah, I think that's really exciting. But as far as this weekend went, we had Vick Strongest Man, which was fantastic. Actually, I really, really enjoyed it. Probably, it was run really well. It was cool to have it back at Iron Rev. I haven't been there for a long time.
I like comps at Iron Rev. I think it's just there's a big car park as well, and the gym's super open with like a high ceiling, and it's just like
good vibe.
Open. Yeah,
I actually think
that was my first comp.
Doherty's verse. Yeah, maybe it's just like a nostalgia thing too.
Yeah,
my
first comp was at Iron Rev.
My first comp was at Odin. That doesn't exist anymore. Do you remember whether you remember Odin?
Yeah,
but Aaron did run Odin. I don't think Iron Rev existed when I started. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
So then it was like into performance or something like that, and then it was Iron Rev took over because I can't remember. No, maybe there was.
No, I did the Iron Rev comp before I did a comp at Into Performance.
Maybe
at the old one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
It was at Noble Park.
I definitely did my first comp at Odin. I'm just trying to think when Iron Rev opened. Anyway, not important. Yeah, Iron Rev always, maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but Iron Rev or Doherty's for Vicks?
I like Iron Rev. Doherty's has so much access to, like, you go in the gym and there's toilets, microwave, meals, coffee. You walk down the street, there's everything there. But
good location.
The bodybuilders just don't give a shit.
Nah.
You would think that people would walk, and if I was training, like I used to train at Doherty's years ago, if I walked out and saw that, I would stop and be like, oh, this is cool, what's this? They all walk past and go, oh, that's weird, and keep walking.
Like,
in their stringers.
You know what I mean? Like the idea is like, yeah, cool, it's a good location, it's relatively centered, like you might get some spectators. Never.
No.
Never. You know, never happens.
No, everyone in that gym is just like in and out, and off they go. You get the occasional person that like pops in, but
I was thinking about this because
it's just tight. It's really tightly packed.
Yeah, it's tight in there, and like yes, it's good, handy having the gym and stuff there for like warm-ups, and it's quite a lot of space. I was thinking about this last night though, because even like Iron Rev versus here, it's a way better venue to run comps. It just works better. There's like the car park and stuff like that out the front is really handy. When they clear it out, it's like quite open. It's a good space to have like a comp like that. Like warm-up space seems to be okay.
Maybe it's just gyms in big industrial areas.
Yeah, where they've got more out, like car park spaces, spread stuff.
Like Steel and Stone's the same. Like when they run Queensland's, all the other businesses are closed, so they have that whole front area. Car park.
Yeah, it does work.
An entire gym.
Yeah,
it does. Which is a big space.
It does work really well. I mean, and we talked about this the other week though, like the warm-up area and stuff like that. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't like people didn't have the warm-up access that we were talking about the other week. No issues, no complaints.
No, comp split over 2 days.
Yep,
helps.
Yeah, for sure. And great move. Short days, quick game's a good game.
Yep.
There was a lot of competitors. I don't know what the total number of competitors were for Vicks, but it ran quick. You know, like we were done. We started at 9. We're done by 2 o'clock on Sunday.
Love a short comp.
5 hours. Like plenty of competitors, but it's a good day for the competitors. It's a good day for the spectators. Everyone's in and out. And I mean, the 2-day thing is harder for like a running of it in terms of like getting helpers and stuff like that to go the whole weekend. Like I understand that, but from a competition standpoint, way better, right?
Yeah.
It was fun. I thought it was like really well run. And I know there was like some discord, not to like even like after like Queensland, I had a few clients to be like, fuck, I'm done with like these comps, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Vicks was a fucking great time, good energy. We had the same rests, we had the same promoters, we had the same everything else. Everything was the same, and everyone had a good time. So is it that or is it Queenslanders? I don't know.
As in the Queensland athletes?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, everything was the same, and it was run really well. The calls were all pretty good, right? Like, everything was pretty good. The comp was run really well. Everything was bang on.
Yeah, I think it's a difference in events too. Like, you can't really screw up a lot of the Vicks events. Like, I think the Barry carry, like, some people would get called back.
Yeah.
Whether they stepped all the way over the line, part way over the line. So there's like a little bit of leeway there, but otherwise, it's you pick up the Barry when you drop it, you drop it.
Yes.
If you
Controversial calls from Vicks, right? Just quickly, because Leigh wants to start a controversial calls. So we're just going to sneak it in here while we're on this, because you're talking about the Barry. Less rules is better. Foot on the line or over the line?
Put a keg down and go around the keg.
Yeah, simple.
You can't get that wrong.
No, you can't.
Or if you don't go around the keg, it's very visible that you did not go around the keg. Like,
yeah, I mean, we've seen this happen at Pavlo.
Set a course.
Was it Pavlo? In like he kept getting called for like just not foot over the line and not quite getting to the line.
Yep.
I mean, if you're doing the Barry like we've banged on about for 3 years about how to do the Barry with your face, you can't see.
Yeah.
You can't see. So the person needs to be really loud because your face is pressed up against the Barry or above your head. You can't see the line. Like with someone who almost ran into a wall.
You can't hear anything either.
Yeah, someone almost ran into a wall. You are going purple. You can't, if you're holding it, you can't see, but your eyes are probably getting puffy. Your blood pressure's probably rising. You're out of breath. You're fucking dizzy. You can't see. You can't hear. You can't, nothing. Go around something, I guess. Yeah, it's a good option.
That's why I like the box for the farmers.
Yeah.
Because like...
Yeah, the box is simple.
Like CrossFit do that as well. It's just like... You've got lines, boxes, you need to be within this space. Versus the farmers being like, maybe just cross this line or something.
They're good for spectators too. Like, they know they're going to get in the box and they're going to hold it.
Yeah, they're like, what do they do? Oh, okay, that's the target.
It's simple. Barry carry arm on the shoulder, which didn't get called for anybody. But I watched the first person do that and I thought,
I saw it and I think it was...
Your client was one of the first ones to do it.
Which one?
Aiden.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And then Akita...
was it resting? Akish did it.
Akish did it
I saw
afterwards.
Akish do it.
Yeah, he did it afterwards.
I saw it like kind of floating.
And then it drops.
And then I think he relapped it and picked it up higher. And I was like, okay, it's not really gaining an advantage. Yeah. But I was expecting it to kind of slip and then him just to be sweet. And I was like,
I think the first person to do it was Jackson Dado in the 105s on the
yeah. Well, that's probably my fault.
Yeah. Like he turned it at the start.
Okay, you can't do that. You've got to pretend. You've got to milk it.
Yeah.
Is it on my shoulder? I'm in the moment. I can't tell.
Yeah, whether it's strategic or not. Did he gain advantage by it, do you think?
I don't know, but there was a few competitors, one of them being Aiden, who came and asked Mason, will that be allowed tomorrow? And he's like, it's been allowed today.
Yeah, well, that's
Okay.
it. I was asking me the rules, and they were like, "Oh, so what's the go here?" Because the girl grabbed the cross arms. I was like, "You can grab the cross arms. You just can't rest any part of the barrier on your shoulder." And then the next person who came up put the barrier on their shoulder, and I was like, "Oh, fuck me! Apparently you can." I'll remember that one.
Yeah.
And then the last controversial call, which I don't think is that controversial, but I thought this was very anyway.
I must have missed all of this.
Barbell, no, it wasn't a controversial call, but I find this very interesting that you can be so staunchly against a particular rule that you will allow Steinborn squats but not a belt clean.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Mason about that. Like when he was down.
Because someone got called for a belt clean, right? And I was like, and I said to him, like, look, it can apparently, like, so because it can touch your belt.
Yep.
It just can't rest on your belt. Super subjective, right? How long does it sit on your belt before it's a rest? It's just, don't touch the belt, do touch the belt. No belt cleans. Like, if you can't touch your belt, that, like, can touch the belt but can't rest on the belt is very, very hard to referee, right?
Yeah.
And very annoying as a
I've seen
athlete.
people, like, slingshot it off their belt, but because they're so quick, you can't really call it.
No, and you can do that. You can hit the belt and slingshot it, but that's a huge advantage.
Yep.
Like, it's amazing.
I had one of my clients on the first day. His first attempt got called as a belt clean because he had like the soft belt high and the hard belt low. And it was on the soft belt, but obviously it just folds and sits down. And so I was like, cool, put your soft belt underneath your grip shirt.
Yeah, I won't see it.
And then put your hard belt here.
Yeah.
So it's still caught on the soft belt.
But it looks like skin on his shirt.
Yeah, and the shirt's there.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, it didn't get called for that. And he's like, it literally sat in the exact same spot.
No, I don't understand. It's just bending the rules. That's fine. And like, that's what we do. That's like the athlete's prerogative is to maybe bend the rules to your advantage, right?
Yep.
And like, but yeah, I felt that one was like quite interesting because it got called for a belt clean. And I'm like, yep, probably rested a little bit longer than what like it should have if you were just trying to touch and move it up. Like you've got to continuously try to move it up, right? If you're going to belt touch. But I just found that one really interesting. It's like, cool, belt clean, no belt clean, but barbell anyhow, Steinborn, do it, get it up there however you like, but still don't fucking belt clean.
Yeah.
Like, that was a funny one. So I found that quite controversial. And I saw it in the rules early on, but I just thought that was very funny. Apart from that, really, really good. And then we had AAC.
Yep.
See much of it? A few clients doing it though, right?
Yeah. Had 3 doing it.
Yep.
It seemed really well ran from what they've said anyway.
I've had
so
pretty
I
good
just didn't get
feedback.
to see a lot of it.
Yeah.
I've only seen like what they've done essentially.
Great vibe.
Yeah.
Equipment looked great. Like the Fenrir logs and all that sort of stuff was fantastic. Probably the only downfall was the pig flip broke on day 1 after a few warm-ups.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate.
I like the idea of having that in.
The pig flip was a great idea. Just it's a shame that it broke. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to hard test a new piece of equipment before like it goes out to a national competition where clients have been doing tire flips for fucking 12 weeks for this comp, you know? Because then it's just a max anvil carry. But those anvils are very nice to carry.
Yeah, we got to like have a feel of those in Queensland.
Yeah, and they were comfy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sit just perfect.
Yeah, the anvil's very comfy.
No matter how, like, I like implements that no matter, like, if there's a 50 kilo person or 150 kilo person, they can both use it.
Yeah.
And that thing's monstrous, but the cut-in's so close.
Yeah.
That, all the
And it
all the
looks-
lightweight and, like, the
can dig
smaller
into
women
it.
just sat perfect.
And it looks big.
Yeah.
Like I saw it and I was like, oh, that looks horrible. And I picked it up and I was like, oh, that feels really nice to carry.
Which
Because
is-
they had reasonable weights and they were carrying it for 80 meters, you know, like 90 meters. Like there was some long carries. That Fenrir logs, like the Strength Smith, I think it is, like pig flip and the anvils and stuff. Stone over bar, max log, and the $silver deadlift from like a normal or standard deadlift height.
Yeah, 12 inches.
Yeah,
Slightly
12
higher.
inch, slightly higher, but a little bit like lower than a normal $silver deadlift. Apparently, great vibe, expo. Apparently, like run quite well. The only thing that I would say, having done Vicks and getting some feedback around that was they split the days up, but they were still quite long. But it sounded like there was a lot of dead time. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're splitting the weight classes up, you want a short day.
Yep.
And I don't know whether it's because of an expo thing and keeping times and all that sort of stuff, but it sounded like it was still like a 9 till 5 kind of day when you're splitting 2 weight classes.
Yeah, the Melbourne Expo was the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was there for that. And I think that was more a case of like, they had that allocated time regardless.
Yeah, so they were using it.
So they were using it. And I think the idea was like, you guys get to go wander around, have a look, enjoy the day. It's not going to be a stressful, like, fast day.
Yeah, sure.
So for the athletes that love, like, a long, chill day.
Yeah.
Like, I know some that love New South Wales Strongest going until 8
Because hang
PM.
out all day.
Yeah, because they got to, like, put their feet up for 2 hours.
Yeah,
It was mostly heavyweights and the older boys.
Yeah, of course.
But then the rest of us that are like, can I just take my day off?
Yeah, and
if
then
I've
I'll
done
go
it
have a
too,
look.
Then I'll go have a wander.
Yeah, and I agree. And like, yeah, it just sounded like it was like, you know, we did this recently. I can't remember what comp this was at. Oh, no, it was just, it was Worlds. It was a long day.
Yep.
But there was just a lot of dead time. Like, we were like, okay, cool. Like, nothing's happening here. Can we just start the event?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a longer day than it had to be. And you can kind of understand when there's other weight classes going on. But when there's just you, like, it was just like 105s or whatever on the day, let's go.
Yeah, if you've got spectators.
Yeah, like, let's pump this
especially
thing
in
out.
an expo or somewhere busy, like, you get foot traffic. You don't want people walking past going, there's nothing here, I won't
Yeah,
come
nothing
back.
happening. Yeah, 100%. So, like, I just feel like, yeah, as an athlete, it's kind of fine if there's like other weight classes and it's a big day and you sort of like have to. But when you're kind of hanging out, there's nothing happening. It's very like, there's no one lifting and you just kind of like, okay, cool. Like, when do we go next? That's kind of a little bit like, oh.
As far as like athletes go and competing, I think injuries are far less likely to happen when you don't stop.
So. Yeah, very much so. From an
Like, I think people are worried that like, oh, we can't do the next event because they need rest time, and it's like,
no, no. You cool down, you have to warm up again. Like, that's when things start to go a little bit sideways, depending. And America's Strongest Man across the pond.
Yeah, so they did 90s, 82s, and then opens for men and women.
Yeah. Love the events. Like we were talking about ACT. America's Strongest Man, pretty straightforward. They're the American Shield or Husaful. They had the yoke walk, log clean and press, deadlift ladder, sandbag throws and stones.
Yep.
Bang, bang. Great. 6 events, 2 days, plenty of athletes. Big performances, strong guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's always going to be a fucking killer comp. Like, America's got such good depth. Yeah, in their strongman, you know.
I don't think they did originally, and then Lucas Hatton put out a post being like, if you're not doing the big comps, if you're not doing Rogue and all these other big comps, you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And then he had more people sign up.
For the opens.
Yeah,
kind
for the
of thing.
opens.
There wasn't like depth in the opens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like Kevin Ferris and like a few of the other guys signed up.
Yeah, well, Kevin Ferris went for a fucking hike with the shield.
I like the shield. It's just like a standard carry. I don't know if it was like Florida or
like
whatever.
190
poked out the
kilos,
bottom.
wasn't it?
There was something that poked out the corner.
Yeah, that looked horrible.
I think it was Florida or something. And you could see where some people grabbed it and some people got under it.
Oh, yeah,
And it just
sure.
looked like this sharp
Yeah,
edge.
yeah. Well, he went for a hike.
Yeah.
Kevin Ferris is just a monster because he was 105. He started as 105,
Yeah.
big 105, very strong 105. And then you had like Lucas Hatton like smashed the fucking deadlift medley and stuff like that. Like so that looked quite good. But yeah, great. It looked like I saw like little bits and pieces. A really good comp.
Yeah. Yeah, the 90s was super competitive as well.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I think that like the guys that do the bigger comps, even though there's more like, you'd think the bigger comps are more competitive.
Yeah.
But sometimes like going back to a lower comp, it's actually more competitive because like the weights are lighter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like,
different. Like
the point shift varies more because it's at a capacity where more people can kind of reach the standard.
yeah, like when I was like starting out in the sport, like the local comps that would qualify for the Arnolds, I could beat guys that would absolutely demolish me at the Arnolds because the weights were dialed back enough that where I was like quicker and
Yeah,
it
100%.
leveled the playing field a
100%
bit.
does level the playing field a little bit.
And it probably does that now. If I go back and do a lighter comp, I really have to work. I have to be quick.
Yeah. I mean, one good thing is like OSG's coming up. Do you know what I mean? Like we're in October, but those guys still, you know, like Uncle Nick and Derek and stuff like that, they're still jumping in there doing America's Strongest Man. So you should. Do you know what I mean? Like it's your country's strongest man. Like I think people forget this. Like you should be competing for like Victoria's Strongest Man. If it's your state, there's still some like stock of like being this state's strongest man, being Australia's strongest man in whatever weight class, and then trying to push that up, right? People sort of like go, oh, I'm not doing that. Like I want to do like OSG or I want to do this. Like you should still be vying for what's happening here and then pushing in there. Because if what's happening here, if you're that good, what's happening here should be a fucking blowover.
Yeah. You want to have a resume.
Yeah. You want to have a resume
Somewhere.
and like,
along the way. You don't just want to do like one comp a year and it's that big comp, because if you lose that comp or you have a bad comp, you have nothing to fall back on. And then everyone's like, oh, they forget about you.
There's something to be said for greasing the wheels of like competing and being a competitor all year round too, you know? Like Strongman was never designed to do one comp a year. Yes, like the Giants Lives guys, they don't do one comp a year. Like they're going to make a fucking earning. Like they're going to make a living. Like Strongman should be, for the most part, you have one or two, like in my opinion, most people should be doing like one or two big comps where they have to like push for or redline to a little bit. And you should still be like ticking the box or like greasing the groove of competition within that sort of surplus. Like you have a strength surplus, you could just jump into that comp. You might just like fine tune a couple of things, but you can just jump in and have some fun. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where I think that sweet spot is for most people.
Depending on like ACT for you then?
For people who are competitive strongmen.
Official retirement.
I do BJJ and psychedelics on the weekend now and listen to Joe Rogan.
Do sprints every 3 months.
I'm retired for a minute. ACT would have been the one, to be honest. I actually like ACT.
Yep.
I just, like I said to you, I have no interest in doing middleweight series because, like I said on the last podcast, I don't really particularly like the event, and I don't think I'd win.
But then I could compete with you.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I'd win. But who won axe throwing on the weekend? That's probably the more important thing. So
that's still going to hurt me. There's like, what, 30 of us?
There's like 30 guys.
Yeah. Doing the axe throwing, and it was like split up into like 6 areas, and like the winner of each area would then all come together. And then it ended up being one of the other guys and us.
It was like, of course, it's fucking
and
us.
It's like, okay, one game to decide the winner, and we tie. So then they brought out like, they've got like long axes that you do with 2 hands overhead, and they're like, all right, one shot, whoever gets the most points. And I'm like, have you thrown the long axe before? And he's like, yeah, I got to throw it a few times. I'm like, I haven't. So I'm just like, great, first attempt. Got it stuck in, but just like way off to the side.
Yeah.
And then you got it somewhere like in the middle, and I'm like,
it's done.
I tried. I have a handicap that I'll bring up every single time.
Yeah, there's a reason always.
Yeah.
The series event. So at Vick Strongest Man, we had the lever deadlift from like a conventional height, which do not discount, by the way, because there's some good deadlifters who had a very hard time with this event.
Yeah, I don't know if it ended up heavier than what, like, because obviously it's so hard to get the weight accurate. Mm-hmm. And maybe it started at 220. Maybe from the knee it was 220. Yeah. But it was probably 240 off the ground.
Yeah.
So I think, the weight caught a lot of people off guard. Like, they picked it up and they're like, there's no way that weighs that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it might.
Yeah, but it's like there's a
swing,
curve of, it got announced as the final series event.
Yep.
All right. And then, so what do you think of that event? So the final series event, which will be released very shortly, it'll be released by the time we get this podcast out, is that lever deadlift from a standard height. Now, it looked very hard. Thoughts of the weekend? What do you think of it?
It's fun. It's a deadlift.
Yeah, it's a deadlift. Looked great.
I always like just deadlifting on a barbell. So anytime I see something different, I'm like, that looks harder. And not as fun.
It's a stiff bar and it looks a lot harder.
There's no flex in it. I think it'll depend what weight it is and how it goes.
It will depend on what weight it is, yeah.
Especially if it is something for reps instead of rising bar, which I think is meant to be for reps.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to be one set weight.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it going to be heavy enough to where the top guys are getting below 10 reps?
Yeah.
Which means there's a good chunk that aren't going to get it off the floor.
Yeah.
Or is it going to cater to everyone, which means the winner's going to get 20? And blow their hamstrings out and not be able to do power stairs.
You hope it's that kind of like 10 rep mark, but the problem is, like you saw, it really was athlete dependent. I saw good deadlifters and good deadlifters, and some got 3 reps and some got no reps.
Yep.
Like it's that setup position, it's your personal leverages, it's how you approach that implement. It varied so much just depending on the athlete. Even if you put 2 people together with the same deadlift. I had 2 athletes who have the same fucking deadlift, and one person blew it out of the water, and one person got 2 deadlifts in and couldn't get it. Just couldn't get the position right or the pull right or whatever it was, or just felt really fucking heavy.
It's like you want a frame deadlift.
Yeah. Hey.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah, but it's the same thing. Like, it levels the playing field out.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I still won the frame deadlift. It was just equal with someone else who has a deadlift that's 50 kilos, 60 kilos behind my deadlift. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just.
Do you know who it was?
Sam LaSurf.
Oh,
No.
He was so dirty at that too.
his knees held up.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he
was-
didn't come anywhere near the podium, but he did manage to tie first on that event.
This was 105s like 2019,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
knees were fresh back then.
Yeah. He wasn't carrying as much weight around day to day.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. I guess if that's light enough that everyone's okay, it'd be good to see the power stairs be heavy and like I
suggested this 9 stairs and make it heavy. Yeah. I would like
versus
to see it.
the standard, I guess.
I would
3
like
by
to see,
5.
because of the other events, because you've got so many sort of like
endurance
kind of like hard to gauge kind of events, it'd be good to see 9 stairs really fucking heavy. Like, only 2 guys finish the stairs, you know?
Yeah.
I think that would be like cool. Speaking of that, because it is a series events, any pro tips for training the lever deadlift? Or even just executing it?
executing it.
Yeah, like how to do it.
God, probably
What
stay.
did you see the mistakes? What mistakes did you see?
People set up a little bit back, like their feet are back. Because it's lower though, you can't, like our car deadlift, you can get your feet right under that thing because it's a higher pull and you can lean back early.
Yeah.
That's low.
Yeah.
So you still stand close to it, but you have to pull up and it feels like it pulls away from you. And I think a lot of people break the ground and then start to sit back and they just pull against it and get caught.
Yeah, that was my biggest thing, and we actually spoke about this on Saturday after being at the Saturday after watching the comp and stuff. It's like you still the lever for that deadlift, especially because it's low. Like yes, because like a lever deadlift is going to come back, it's going to arc back, but you still need to break the floor. If you pull back on it straight away and start to lean back on it, you just pull into your shins. It goes nowhere. Like it's still a deadlift. It still needs to create momentum upwards and speed. Any other major mistakes that you saw
On the deadlift?
Yeah. Or like things that you think will help people training it for the series?
Get better at deadlifting?
Yeah, stiff bar. I quite like the isometrics, like doing some like low ISO pulls into like pins and stuff like that because that break is hard.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's kind of like the trap bar deadlift. It's kind of like a even like an axle off a height or something like that. It's that you have to reach peak blood pressure before it breaks the ground.
Yeah.
You know, the repetitions kind of are okay. But that first one, if it's heavy, is hard. And then when you come down and you've already like come down from that top position into the next one, it's usually quite good if you get momentum or like if you can pace it well. But if you take a break and you're already fatigued, that next rep is very, very hard.
Which was probably hard on the weekend because it was a rising bar.
Yeah, which makes it really
So
challenging.
you had to stop, throw a keg in, up call, I'll get set up.
Yeah. Which is like, I don't know what you did with your guys, but I did for my guys, I did like clusters, like 4x1 clusters, like with 5 seconds breaks, because that is a very hard skill. To deadlift with those pauses is way harder than a set of 4 or 5. And it is a trainable skill. Like you can get better at it, but it is hard and it's taxing. And your 5 RM is not your 5x1 RM. You know,
It's 5 singles.
Yeah, it's 5 singles and it's fucking hard. And then obviously since our last podcast, we have had the very controversial release of the dead hang.
Yep.
What's your opinion?
My opinion. I don't particularly like it, but I said that to Mason as well, where I didn't think the flag raise was going to be crash hot, and that turned out to be great to watch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think it'll be great for middleweights, especially because they're all going at once.
Yep.
And there'll be like, 15, 16, 105s all hanging from a bar.
Yep.
And I think they'll do something impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the heavyweights will be that entertaining to watch.
How long do you think that a heavyweight will hold from a bar from?
Like winner, like a minute-ish.
Yep. Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think the theory is like, and I've heard a few people say it where they're like, but they can hold 180 per hand farmers.
Yeah.
So they should be able to hold their body weight
Different
forever.
position.
And it's like completely different position,
Very
different
different
like blood
position.
flow, like different restrictions through the traps.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. I reckon 2 minutes. I reckon a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Some of the guys trained
yeah.
potentially. I think if it goes for 2 minutes, I think it should be interesting.
It also just comes down to the athletes too, because if you see people drop and then there's 4 and there's an extra 20 seconds and then one drops and then there's 2 and that goes for an extra 30.
Yeah.
The crowd's going to, like, that gets up and about because there's just 2. But depending on how the athletes drop, if they all just go duk, 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 and it's done, then it's not exciting.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
The same with the flag race.
It could go both ways.
The flag race was exciting because people screwed it up and went,
yeah.
Went back down, and you're like, oh, they fucked it. And
Yeah,
then they went back up.
There was a little bit of, you could build a bit of tension there. I think, I actually, like, because obviously on the last podcast, like, I don't like 6 of the events. Yeah. And and then, like, people jumped on and were like, oh, the hang and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I actually like the hang. Like, that's one where, like, people forget. It's been in World's Strongest Man a lot. Like,
it was in the heats, not the finals.
Not the finals, but it has been historically in World's Strongest Man a few times.
Yep.
And it is actually, it's always proven to be quite an interesting event. I did it over the pool and stuff like that one year. Like, I think I did it off a crane one year or something like that, or like it was something hanging over a long time ago.
I think if you, like, flash it up.
Yeah, 100%. But it is a historical event. It is a strongman event, and it's not like it's plucked out of nowhere. I said the problem is the context.
Yep.
The problem is if you're going to do a power stairs, a behind the neck press, a monster dumbbell, a sandbag to shoulder, like if you're going to do a whole bunch of those type of events, the grip event, in my opinion, probably could have been something heavy.
Yep.
However, I actually quite like the grip event, and Mason asked like my opinion on the other day, and he had some good points. But I think like one thing to think about is, let's talk about fight like a Hercules hold, right? Or we had the barbecue hold one year, right? The front hold, right?
That's right. Yeah.
We've had like a lot of their series events have had front holds or side holds.
Yep.
No one wants to watch 20 motherfuckers get up there and hold it for 60 seconds apiece, doing a front hold or a barbecue hold on a lever, or, you know, Hercules hold is cool, but it's 20 people. If it's like 45 to 60 seconds and you've got 20 athletes.
Hercules hold's cool for about 2 or 3 hits.
100%. And then it's like, fucking long and it's boring. Yeah. Or you do it or people are holding it for 10 seconds, like the pillars.
Yep.
That's not exciting either. 10 seconds of like, oh, they can hold it for 10 seconds and it drops is not exciting either, right? So, like, you think about like the other options for like a grip hold in a competition with 8 events.
Yep.
Not every event can take that much time. Not every event needs to be that hard, right? As a grip event or as a hold event, because Hercules hold often not going to be side by side, very hard to manage that side by side, different implements, releases, etc., etc. Front holds, boring as fuck. Shoulders, whatever, not really grip. The barbecue hold is one of those ones where, like, fine, but it's a lever barbecue, like you're standing there holding, not that exciting. You put all the guys up there, and now it could flop. They could flop.
Belly flop.
They could flop. They could just fucking drop like flies, and it's not that interesting. I don't think they should. I think there's some good athletes in there who probably can actually hold with some training, hold that time. You put everybody out there at once. 16 guys out there in a bar. It's ASM on the line. You've got to hold on.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
It's a 3-minute event.
Yeah.
It's done in 3 minutes. You've got everybody in the fucking crowd watching. What, for 3 minutes, it's who's going to win. And it's the same as we talked about the farmers event this weekend. And like there was some pivotal moments where you would have to run the farmers into the box. And we said we quite liked that event. And it was a farmers hold, but you had to run it 10 meters first and then stand in the box. That was a deciding event in a few classes where the people were standing side by side and whoever held that thing the longest won. You get all the guys up there and they're holding on for points, and you know that motherfucker, 3 people down, is 2 points ahead of you, and you just need to hold on and then wait for 2 more people to drop before you drop so you can take his spot. That's pretty exciting, in my opinion, if it plays out like that.
If it plays out like that. The only other way would be like PSL for the 64s. They did like the sandbag over bar, but it was like a gauntlet.
Yep.
So it was 3 sandbags, and then you halve the field, and then you have round 2.
Yeah.
and then
Like
the
a round
and then
robin
it was
kind
like
of-
it was
like a
top
little round
three.
robin deal.
That might be the only other way is to have
Yeah.
like a weighted hang, so it's a
something
shorter
like that.
time.
Yeah, shorter time, and do like a round robin kind
and
of
do
deal.
split people into groups and go right 1 versus 1.
Yeah.
Have them face each other basically. That'd be the other way, is like you're just hanging, just staring at someone.
Stare at someone. Stare
Once
at
you
someone's
drop,
eyes.
it's like go out. You're
Sounds
done.
romantic. That's a lot of gripping. Like,
Yeah.
You know, your hands are like getting red raw. So like I personally actually, I think people need to reframe that in their minds in terms of like as a spectacle or as a strongman event.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's in the context, maybe not, but the 7 other events, like, meh. I think it's good. I actually quite like it personally.
Yeah, it depends what you're expecting. Like, I was expecting middleweights to be big, heavy,
Yes.
national thing. And
Never has.
And then I think when it comes out and you're like, oh, it's not that. So you're like, fuck this.
That's kind of every year. Like just the
now that
farmers when
it's-
I did it was like 130. Like I was like, fuck yeah, middleweight series. And it was like 70 kilo dumbbell, 130 farmers, like max deadlift, you know, like Viking press max. Like that's fun. It's heavy.
Yep.
But it wasn't wildly heavy, you know.
No, so I think once you see all these events and they sink in and then eventually just accept that, like, okay, we're doing like 90 strongman.
But we have to accept that the standard isn't the standard. The standard is like, I thought it wasn't heavy. I thought middleweight series was a bit light on. And then the 105s all topped out at like 300 deadlift. Do you know what I mean? The 130 farmers weren't that fast. A whole bunch of guys dropped them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the 105s just aren't strong deadlifts.
yeah, no, they're not.
But
But
and I say that knowing that, like, I'm going to go and do 105s next year, and I'm probably not going to win the deadlift.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be competitive, and I'm a 90.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be.
And like
too
150,
competitive.
it was 150 for, it was 150 stone for reps, and it's like 4 or 5 reps maybe was the standard, like 3 to 5.
Yep.
Arnold's like 5 years ago was a 150 stone, and like I was hitting 5 reps. You know what I mean? Like for the win. So
One of the years I finished the 90s run with a 160.
yeah, which is
The
kind
whole
of similar
series
to
it
the
started like
ACT.
high to low.
So like I think we just need to remember that we have Australia's an interesting one where we have a whole bunch of really good outliers who are world standard athletes, but they're not the standard.
Yeah.
We think that like, oh, the standard is there. It's not. The standard is actually a significant step back from where that is. Do you know what I mean? Like across the board in most weight classes, the standard of like the general standard versus like who we base it off like the athletes that we know, and they're quite good.
Yep.
Or really, really good, but it's not the standard, you know?
Yeah. I think it depends why you compete too. Like, if you compete because you want to lift big, heavy things,
Yeah.
that's going to be disappointing. Whereas, like, I compete to compete against people.
Yes. It's strongman. You
So
win to comp. You
I go
compete
over
to win
and-
comps.
Yeah, so like even Chaos this year, like
Yeah.
I know that they're not my good events.
Yeah.
Like I look at those events and I'm like, oh, that's a tough time for some of those. Like Axel's
Yep.
not my greatest event. Sandbag's not my greatest event. But
Yep.
the point is to go over there and even with bad events, if I can still mix it with the best and
Yep.
still come out with a good result,
Yeah.
then I'm still one of the top athletes. And obviously, if I have a comp where all the events are suited towards me, it's like, oh, great, now I'm going to do really well.
Which is fantastic, right? But in terms of like, and like I agree, which is 100% fantastic. And the best thing about that, and probably one thing that people aren't thinking about with these events, is you would not work on certain things or certain skills ever like this. You will get better as a well-rounded athlete by doing these kind of events because you will never make the time to do this kind of training
Yep.
outside of if the events were here.
And you
You
can
know what I
also do log if you want to do log
Yeah, of
as
course.
well as everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah.
But yeah, my thought is like year after year, like different people might win 105s now
Yes. Yeah.
because of different events.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody that's coming top 5 every single year, regardless of the events that come out, you're
well-rounded.
you're one of the best.
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, maybe you didn't win it because it wasn't your perfect comp, but you've shown that you can adapt and be competitive no matter what.
And like be close or up to the standard no matter what those events kind of
Which
come
is
up
probably like, that's probably what I've done
Just as
for
hard.
years more than anything.
at the
is
world
like-
level. Yeah, 100%. You've always been
And
there.
even the Arnold's comps, like I've watched guys win it and then come 8th.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd won it and then I'd come 3rd.
Yeah.
And the year before that I came 2nd.
Yeah, like you're
So-
always right there. It's no matter what the event.
Yeah, I'm probably not the person that's going to go in and just blow everyone out of the water and clean up
No.
and win.
Yes, I agree.
But no matter the events,
You're always right up there.
yeah.
Yeah, which is consistency. And yeah, I think that's like an important thing where people forget that there's opportunity here with these events to do some work as a strongman and develop yourself as an athlete that you probably wouldn't have otherwise.
It's just a different challenge.
Yeah, it's a different challenge, and it's just strongman. That's how it works. That's how it kind of works.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Tips on training grip. I mean, you work with a grip coach, so what do you think for this hold that's going to help people out over the next sort of like 16, 20 weeks to get prepared for the series events?
I probably wouldn't be training for it now. It's a long,
Get very bored.
That's a long time. Like maybe put a pull-up bar in like your lounge room and watch TV and like just hang away from it. No, grip, you just have to train in like different aspects of grip. Like figure out where your grip's weak.
Yeah.
Like is your thumb strength weak? Is it your forearm strength? Is your wrist not able to like with farmers, not able to hold a certain position? Like figure out where that weak point is and obviously train that.
Yep.
But the hang's super easy. Like you can do progressive overload and you can do 20 kilo hangs, 40 kilo hangs, 50 kilo hangs.
Yep.
Keep working off like time.
Like my thing's frequency with that, kind of like with a hold.
Yep.
Like frequency, relative frequency, just to acknowledge that your grip will kind of burn out a little bit.
Yeah. You could do farmer's holds. You could do any sort of hold.
100%.
But obviously, the more comfortable you are here,
hanging.
the better it's going to be.
Well, you can do 3 sets of 30-second hangs. It's like low fruit before every workout. It's good for you.
Yeah, and get a dip belt and just do it
hanging is
heavy.
good for you. Yeah, and then you can add some weight. But I like increasing the density of like the training. So like 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, max rounds kind of stuff.
More
Like
work.
100%. Like more work, takes micro breaks, but accumulate work.
Yeah.
You know, things like that are really good. But just in relative frequency and just like mix up the modality early. You know?
I did that with the front hold for a few athletes. I think it was Western Australia.
Yeah, I do like Tabata, like 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off and stuff like that. Yeah.
So yeah, you just do the math where it's like, okay, you're holding for 3 minutes of time across 10 minutes. And then gradually we're going to get that to be 5 minutes of time over 7 minutes. Yeah. And then eventually work it back down to where we're probably aiming for 2 minutes in comp.
Yeah, 100%. And I do that for like even like distance carries. It's like, we're not going to start off with distance carries. We're going to create density with the work, and you're going to run it every 30 seconds, 10 meters. So you're going to get 100 meters in this amount of time. And then we're just going to pull that in
and see where it falls.
Yeah, 100%. So definitely a good way to like reverse engineer it.
Yeah, and no matter how hard you train it, someone's probably just going to jump up there and hang and do random shit all the time and probably beat you.
Yes.
If their grip's better.
That's it.
Go down to the playground, do some monkey bars.
Yep. It's hard, bro. I've been doing it.
I actually thought of that. I was like, I don't want to hang from something. And I'm
Yeah,
like, if I can
go
go find like
bars.
I'll go do monkey bars.
Yeah.
Or find like where the squat rack is because there's kind of like 3 bars. And just hang and just kind of like
monkey across.
Traverse my way across because that's going to slip.
Those
It's
monkey
gonna create
bars
like
at
a
the
better
playground, they're quite thin. It's very hard. I've been out there. Yeah, I've been on them. Flying foxes.
If you just practice a dead hang with Coulter, because he's always going to beat you, you'll always be trying to hold longer.
He's a jet. Qualification system in Australia. Top 3, top 2. What do we think about the future of the qualification system? Should it be points based? Should it be top 3 and no point system?
There's no real right or wrong answer there. Like
No,
top 3 makes sense. Like if you podium, you go through. But we need a full podium.
Yes.
For there to be podium.
We had this conversation like 2 years ago because it's like when we go on to when you look at the podiums at some comps and people got hurt by this. But we said like the podiums aren't strong. Yeah. Like sometimes in a competition, like number 1 or number 2 are like pretty good, but like the full podium or the full depth of the competition, like there's 3 people and like maybe 2 of them probably aren't at the standard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's getting better, but if you looked at every podium, like the top 3 are top 3 really at middleweight standard, do you know what I mean? Or like Australia's strongest standard or like a lightweight standard. I
think the conversation coming up that top 3 should qualify shows how much better it's getting because it means that people are visibly seeing someone come third that should be there. That didn't make the cut.
Yep.
So that just noticing that person should be there, but they came third, that's fucked.
Yeah.
That's shows progress in the sport.
But I mean, we also see, even with the 2 people and the point system, we see competitions where there's a competitive group and there's still 3 or 4 people in every comp that shouldn't be there.
That was always the case, though. Like,
and it is always the case. Like Arnold's was the same thing. You get people
we
just
had
zero all the
16
fucking
in
events.
the 90s, and I think 12th through to 16th were just stoked to get a shirt.
Yeah.
And be there.
Yeah. So it's always been the case, but yeah, just just making note.
OSG
like,
is the same.
Still happens.
God, you could cut like
25
back to what 43,
Okay,
90s.
segue, because I was thinking about this in the car the other day.
You could
and
chop
I was like,
half of those out because they are just
well,
struggling.
we were talking about the viability and the OSG is like a long-term thing, and like how viable is that if you need to get 40 competitors in every weight class.
Yep.
Would you pay $1,000 to know that like 20 people qualified and they were actually the best athletes in the world, and they actually did they were actually the strongest and to be there? Or do you want to keep paying $500 and have 40 people there and giant fucking days? And do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a business, and there's 40 people there on the top, like maybe the top 30 or 25 that like are in the mix, and then there's 10 or 15 people that are like kind of there, but like not really there. Do you know what I mean? Like not competitive, not ever going to get into that top 10, nowhere near the fucking standard, right? And I understand it's a business, but it's supposed to be like world's strongest man. Like, I just think that like from a long-term like competitive standpoint, I would rather pay more and be top 20, 25 and know that everyone there is going to be like, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, I just think like for me, like that would be my preference, I guess. And having like 40 people, so many people, it's such a long day. It's a poor comp for the competitors versus every other international comp.
Yep.
It's not a good comp for the competitors. Do you know what I mean? You're not
That's how America does it, though.
Yeah,
I think it was.
it's a cattle farm, bro.
USS Nationals.
In and out. Yeah.
USS Nationals had.
They're used to it.
I think it was like 600 or 700 people.
Yeah.
They had 13 lanes because they had 13 divisions because they have like masters and everything else.
Wild.
So basically, their ref, their loaders, their handlers. If you were an open man, you were in lane 10.
Yeah.
You were in lane 10 all day. So it was like 13 separate comps.
Yeah, okay.
Because they just
side
pumped.
by side.
They just pumped every division in each lane, and they had like 600 people to get through.
So many.
And they got through it.
Yeah.
But it was just
It's churn. It's a cattle
constant.
farm. It's a cattle farm.
And then everyone pays $100 and something membership plus $100 and something sign up, and then old mate that runs it renovated his kitchen and his house and got to do all these. So I heard.
But like it's not a show, it's a competition. But World should kind of be a show. Like whether you split that up, well, I don't know how that looks, but the viability of running a 400-person show that, like how long does that last and how long? I think it'll continue to last, obviously. But I don't know. We were talking about this the other day. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like there was some other points there, but aside, that was a tangent. Qual system, top 3, no right answer, right?
I think we're getting to the point where we probably could do that.
And then no point system.
Yeah.
Yep.
There'd be no point system, but it would then obviously go back to if people don't sign up to middleweights and you want to fill the gaps.
How do you
then
choose?
Look at fourth places.
Yeah, how do you choose? Yeah, fourth places. Yeah,
Yeah.
but how do you hierarchy the fourth places?
Hierarchy needs standardization. That's the easiest way is like...
Or you do like an OSG where it's like top 3 and then there's like a little online qualification pool that puts like a hierarchy of backups. Like if you want to be on the reserves list, this is how we do it. I don't know the answer, and I don't think that like...
or just run a comp in a really centralized location once everybody's past their cutoff date for signing up for middleweights.
Yep.
And the gaps that are left, just run like
like a fight, like a last
fourth
chance.
place.
Yeah, like a last...
Get all
fourth
the
plants.
Get everyone that came fourth and
Yep.
be like, if you all want to battle it out again.
It's a good idea. I like it. Final, like last chance, wild card kind of thing.
The bottom of the barrels.
Yeah, make it heavy or something. Bottom of the barrels is a good name.
Yeah.
Interesting. One of the so in terms of talking like strongman and stuff, one thing that we've been seeing lately is the and we want to talk about strongman coach versus strength coach. In your opinion, like, does it matter? What are some pros and cons of both? Because we're seeing like guys like Thomas Stoltman and like Sean Gillen, some of the top guys, and even guys at like our level, using, and this is not like a business plug, like we don't give a fuck. Use whatever you want. But using strength coaches, right, versus like strongman coaches. What's your opinion? Do you think there's some pros and cons? Like, thoughts, feelings.
I think the best way would be to have someone coach you that knows the sport inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to know like the nuances. They're going to know like the little things that do matter.
Yeah.
The benefit to having someone that's a strength coach that isn't in the sport.
Yeah.
We probably pigeonhole ourselves without realizing on this is kind of the best way to sort of train for that event. And they probably bring something completely different that either could bomb or could do really well. They could be like, oh, we're going to do this for your farmers because from a running gait cycle, like sprinting perspective, this was how we trained these guys for power.
Yeah.
So they might bring something very different to the table.
Eddie Williams, another one, who's at like Giants Live, coached by Pat Morrison.
Yeah, but see, that makes sense because Eddie's always moved well.
Yeah.
He's always been able to shift heavy weight and run fast. He's always had a killer grip and he hasn't had the static strength.
Yep. And
get a powerlifting
in terms
coach.
of like moving better, more stably, being in more control. Perfect, right? So it depends on like where those weaknesses are.
Yeah, he's basically looked at the events that he's dropping points on and gone, this is where I'm weak.
Yep.
And I'll find a coach that specializes in that, which is powerlifting.
Yep, 100%.
Essentially, like you don't need to teach him to run a yoke. Like he jumped on with us. It's like, cool, yoke, tick, this week. Do yoke next week, tick. Go faster.
Yeah.
Like there's not much that can be done with that.
Yeah.
Which is probably Tom Stoltman's thing as well, where
he's already good. It's management of the athlete, not really like
his event work is like he picked it up straight away.
Yeah,
like he gets taught by his older brother.
Yeah, and
just sort of picks up a rock, and it's like, cool, you're probably the best person that's ever lifted a stone ever. How'd you learn to pick up a stone? I just
picked up rock.
I'm in Scotland. He said, pick up stone. I pick up stone.
Yeah,
like what do you teach him?
Yeah, true.
So I think that makes sense. I think everybody that I saw, like, because Par's under Luke Richardson, like Par O'Dwyer, so he was like, oh, I thought Tom might go on with Shane because that's where Luke is.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like Loz, a few other people dropped that name as well. And it's like, as good as Shane's marketing group, network, the success that they've had and that he's got World's Strongest Man people on board, there's so many other people as well.
Of course.
Like that's not the only place that
there's
you
so
can
many
go.
people. Like, and you look at the top group, like they're getting coached by a whole bunch of people. People that
Brian
you won't
Shaw
have
and
heard
a
of.
lot of the pros didn't have anybody.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
They were just a bit smarter.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's quite interesting when you look at it like strongman coach versus strength coach and look at like who people are choosing and maybe why. Or I tend to agree, like in terms of like some people, like probably doesn't matter as much. Do you know what I mean? Like
personality type as well. If you're overly analytical and you get really into the nuance already and you pull apart your shit, you probably shouldn't have a coach that also does that because they're just going to exaggerate your problem. Like you need a coach that kind of tells you to just calm down, lift it.
I think that's being versatile as a coach. So like knowing the athlete and being versatile enough to knowing how to approach. I always say coaching athletes is coaching humans. Like you coach the human first and then you think about the athlete. Like that's my big thing. And I think like knowing that human and knowing what they need from you. Some people don't need much. Some people it's like, not great. Like, but some people will tear themselves apart and you can't throw on top of that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like otherwise, like it's like that thing where there needs to be for someone to get successful, you need to be in the right difficulty zone. It needs to be achievable, and it needs to be difficult enough to challenge them, but not difficult enough to bury them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a sweet spot. I think in terms of I think for like myself, like I obviously we both like follow a whole bunch of people on social media that are coaches, and I look at general strength coaches, I look at like powerlifting coaches, or like even some strongman coaches to an extent, and you look at like your weaknesses and your strengths, right? I'm like, there are coaches out there who are smarter than I am. Do you know what I mean? Like smarter, like they talk about like anatomy stuff or physiology stuff, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's quite interesting. Like I know how to talk the talk, but like some stuff I'm like, fuck, that's interesting. Like I haven't even considered that. You know, that's really really interesting. But then I know strongman in and out.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like I know when to chalk your shirt. I can tell you like this. You need to think about this on this event. We can know that like this is a strategy that you need to consider. There's things there like someone who's coaching you that hasn't done strongman or hasn't done it at a high level, doesn't know how the comp runs, doesn't know that you need to consider this, doesn't know that you'll get a little bit more back turn on the log if you just do it like this. Do you know what I mean? Like they haven't problem solved with 200 clients doing the same implements and seeing 200 different people move in different ways with the same implement to go, try this. This might feel a lot better. Maybe think about doing it because they don't know that implement that well. But from a strength and programming side of stuff, or even from an anatomy or physiology standpoint, like they might have great ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's definitely some pros and cons to both. Like outside of the box thinking can fucking work amazingly, I think, as well. Like if you're not too far into the sport, we've got a certain way that we do things that we go, this is how that we see that you would go from point A to point B to get to this comp. Do you know what I mean? And someone might have completely different ideas that doesn't have or look through the lens that we look through being specific strongman coaches.
Yeah, I tend to look at everything as a whole and be like, well, what consistently would be better?
Yeah.
And when you look across most sports, most of the top tennis coaches played tennis.
Uh-huh.
To a relatively good degree. Like, they didn't have to be elite.
Yep.
Most golfing coaches played golf.
Yep.
Like,
there's a thing that comes with like doing the thing, you know, like you understand the thing at like a nuanced level, and you've worked with a lot of people doing the thing to a nuanced level. So I think
9 out of 10 times, like, it's a safer bet to go with someone that's done the sport that you want to do.
And this is the other thing. Like, if you're looking at like price points, or you're looking at like experience and stuff like that, we're talking about good strongman coaches and good general strength coaches. I'm talking about smart people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look at Pat, and like I was thinking about this because I was looking at Pat, and I was like Eddie Williams and stuff, and like, because Pat posts stuff, and like I'm like, oh, that's a great take on something.
Yep.
You know, that's really, really interesting. Like, I really like following Pat because he's got some great ideas on stuff, and he coaches Eddie, so obviously I'm interested.
Yep.
And like I've referred BJ to go see Pat for his shoulder. Yep. I mean, I need someone in person to assess what's going on with that shoulder so I can work with him and then put it into place so we're good for ASM. So I look at someone like that. He's smart, he's intelligent, and he knows shit. And you don't have to have done the thing to know something to a certain degree, right?
Yep.
But I see a lot of mid-range competitors, intermediate competitors, novice competitors, and even good competitors use intermediate level coaches who aren't strongman coaches, make so many fuck-ups. Move terribly. I look at their programs and I think that's not how you program a strongman. There's no right or wrong, but there's wronger than right. You know? So like, I think like one thing to consider is like, we're talking about using good there's good coaches, there's medium level coaches. We all start as moderate coaches. We all learn, we get better, et cetera, but if you're going to use a mid-level coach or pay $50 or $60 or $70 for coaching for like a general strength coach or a powerlifting coach who's now coaching you for a strongman, there's so many times where like, I don't coach a bodybuilding client, a medium level bodybuilding client. It's not my fucking lane. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I got asked that like about a month ago. Was like, oh, would you ever like coach somebody for bodybuilding? And I was like, training or like hopping on stage?
Like
and they're like, oh no, like to hop on stage. And I was like, no.
No, I can do some. I know how to train hypertrophy.
Yeah, I can give you hypertrophy.
Yeah,
stuff.
I know how to get you bigger and stronger. Like, that's fine.
But also, my knowledge on hypertrophy is still limited to where then they're like, right, I want this to look a particular way. 100%. I want this to be balanced. I need to lose muscle here. I need to put on muscle here.
But I would argue kind of the same thing. Your knowledge would be better than a mid-level hypertrophy coach. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. Like I follow like hypertrophy coaches, some of the top coaches in the hypertrophy realm, and it gets so nuanced.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And you learn so much. But there's also the other level where there's a bunch of like moderate level coaches or that medium level coaching where it's like you would still probably be better in terms of like just the coaching side of stuff or the training side of stuff. You probably still have more knowledge to be able to do that than some of those other coaches. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that comes down from like, if you're been coaching for a very long time, online coaching for a very long time, or doing this for a long time, and you've filled a lot of buckets over that time, you have good general knowledge across the board, but you have specialized knowledge in the one thing, which means you can transfer that. And like, like what we're talking about is, if you're going to do strongman and you're in that like intermediate or novice category, like it is actually probably more beneficial to learn how to do those implements from someone who really does know how to do those implements. But then I see guys who are really, really good, who are great at the implements, who don't need that, who will get more benefit potentially out of using someone who isn't maybe a strongman coach, but has really good programming knowledge on what they need to do or out of the box ideas.
Yeah, you see a lot of top powerlifters, like the top of the top, and it's like they just squat, bench, and deadlift every week.
Yeah, it's
not
very
much
specific.
Else.
Yeah.
Super specific because they've just got it dialed in now. They're strong enough that it just comes down to literally the programming.
Program management and athlete management.
Yeah.
Program management and athlete management, you know?
So I don't know. I've heard a lot of people where they'll have a coach and they're like, I'm not good enough to have a better coach. They're like, when I get stronger, like I'd get someone more serious.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how
We
do
get
you
that all the
How do
time.
you get more serious if
Yeah,
you just don't take it more
we
serious?
get that all the time. Like, like, will you take on a novice or an intermediate? Like, I get someone message me and be like, hey, is like, do you have spots? And like, am I someone that you would like be okay with taking on? I'm like, I have novices start because I don't care if you're like going to be Australia's strongest man and like, you know, you got Josh pressing 180 overhead on the weekend, or you're pressing 8 kilos overhead.
Yep.
Are you going to have a crack? Are you going to, if I put the work on a piece of paper, are you going to fill it out every week? Are you going to make notes so I can do my job? And are you going to work to get better? That's the prerequisite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's no strength prerequisite. Like, I'm happy to help anyone if they want to tick the boxes, like they're an athlete. You know what I mean? I think that's an interesting one because that is a very common theme, probably for higher level athletes. And I've had athletes where I haven't gotten the most out of them because like, and they've gone to another coach and they've got more out of it because like I can say one off the top of my head who I'm seeing like start to succeed, like start to really put runs on the board as a novice intermediate. But I know for me, I wasn't a babysitter and I couldn't get them to get to the gym. In the period of life that they were, I was trying very, very hard to like try and program, reprogram, encourage them to get into the gym, make sure you tick the list off, blah, blah, blah. And they couldn't get there. And I ended up saying, if you're not doing the work, I don't feel right. If you're not going to do the training program, like I don't feel right continuing to coach you. I can't keep doing this like this. You know what I mean? Like I set the work, you do the work. That's my job. You know what I mean? That's online coaching. Where now they found a coach, whether it's a better time in life or like whether they just felt they could or whatever it is, they're putting runs on the board. That's great. Do you know what I mean? You got to gel with your coach. You got to want to do the work for your coach. And that's another big thing. Like the coach has to be the leader as well. Interesting. Training comp specific or non-comp specific?
Comes down to the person too.
Yeah, and by that, sorry, I should elaborate. Comp specific in terms of, for Victoria's Strongest Man, we had a conversation before the podcast where we saw a lot of people's legs die on the overhead press, right? Yep. Like they didn't have the legs because there was a quick turnaround from a yoke to an overhead press, which made it very challenging. And a lot of people's leg drive just like died out. Now, do you train then pressing after yoke, or do you continue to focus on the press? So what I'm asking is, do you train comp specifically and put the events kind of in order or train those combinations, or do you keep focusing on the thing?
Onto me. It depends if you have a bad overhead or not. Mm-hmm. So your weaker events should take priority. So you're more well-rounded.
Yep.
So if you're great at yoke and you're terrible at overheads, probably don't put those two back to back because you're going to continue to be shit at overheads in training.
Keep getting better.
Or you're going to have to undercut everything that you do.
Yeah.
You have to pull everything back.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you want to do a lighter overhead day after yoke to get a feel for how terrible it is.
Yeah.
Possibly. But I'd say not.
Yeah.
And if you're really good at yoke, it's like you could kind of just throw yoke anywhere in the week.
Yeah.
As well. So I think I've got like quite a few people that can only get to implements once a week.
Yeah.
So they can do overheads anywhere they want. Usually, if it's not a log,
sure.
They can deadlift anywhere they want. So typically it comes down to the other three.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if you're not great at stones, I'll probably still put stones last because after you scratch your arms up and wash the tacky off, you're probably not doing much else.
Yeah. It's kind of like a full stop to a training session, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of slows it down. You like remove the tacky, you're all oily. You're like, I'm probably not going to go do accessories now.
I don't want to touch anything. I just want to go home. I feel gross.
And it just slows it down. Like I was doing stones like second. And it just slows down your session. Like you take your headphones out, you clean up, it's 20 minutes of stuff, and then you go, okay, I guess we get stuck into the rest of the work now.
Yeah. So I rarely put stones first for anybody.
Yeah.
Even if they're not good at stones, I think it comes down to the event. Like it's not a max lift. Even if you're doing a max stone, it's not as heavy as your max deadlift.
No.
It's not a maximal load on your body.
No.
So I feel like you still can do that under fatigue. You don't need to like really dial it in. Whereas like an overhead, probably the most technical thing that we do in the sport.
Oh, so you're saying lifting rocks isn't as technical as lifting a
very something overhead? Yeah. Pretty much. Go ask just any random person to pick up a rock and then go tell them to put it over their head and see which one looks better.
Yeah.
So Yeah, overheads are probably the most technical thing we've got in the sport. Like
Yeah.
you could say sandbag throws and maybe a few other things are technical, but
still like technical. But there's a hierarchy of coordination, right?
in
like
terms
from
of
motor control and
skill
coordination.
meets heavy.
Yes, I agree.
Like that's the hardest,
Yep.
and that's the thing that there's the biggest split probably is like most events you can see like strong to weak, and it's like gradually it works its way down in every comp.
Yeah,
You got strong deadlifters, you got people in the middle. Overhead's the thing where you've got like a group at the top that crush it.
yeah,
And then there's a big group at the bottom that'll probably zero. And like OSG reflected that.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
Viking press, 7 people get 10 plus reps.
Yeah,
And then the next 20 is zero.
yeah,
So I feel like, and I think, what's Camby's thing? Like win the overhead, win the show.
yeah.
Which doesn't work because I've won a lot of overhead events and I have not won the show.
And I've also lost a lot of overhead events and won the show.
Yeah. But I like the concept
I
of
like
it
the
being
concept,
like,
yeah.
if you've secured like a good overhead,
Yeah,
that's the hardest and the most technical thing that takes the most time. And upper body strength for a lot of people does take a long time,
but
unless they've got a good background.
Yeah, but it's one event. Like this is what I think. Like win the deadlift, win the show. Because
it transfers.
Because it
to
transfers
everything.
to everything else. You have the biggest fucking deadlift in the comp, and like suddenly you've probably got close to the best stones. You have to throw sandbags. Your hip extension's probably fucking reasonable. Do you know what I mean? Like most events, like you can get away if you have a fucking good deadlift. Like you're pretty strong. I have zeroed so many world level competition overheads. Or like I've done ASM where like the first ASM that I podiumed at, I came second to Rongo Keane and zeroed the log.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I zeroed, I scraped in at my first OSG and got 1 rep on the keg and the medley because I failed everything else and still podium. Do you know what I mean? I think if you've got a good deadlift, like the overhead is often one component for like out of the 4 events. So I would say win the deadlift, win the show. But yes, I agree in terms of it is the hardest probably to master.
Yeah. The people that I think do the best across most comps are the ones that move well.
Yes. Yep.
They might not be the most statically strong, so unfortunately they'll lose a lot on the overhead
Depends on the
and
comps,
the deadlift.
yeah. As long as they've got a reasonable base level.
But standardized, like more normal comps, like middleweights.
Yeah. Yep.
Win the deadlift's not going to win middleweights.
Not this year.
No.
There was almost no deadlift.
Yeah. So I think, it depends on the comp.
Yeah.
But changing your week, I guess, to suit your weaknesses. Like, I think you always want to train your strengths.
Yep.
It's always fun to train your strengths.
Yep.
You always come in with a positive attitude. The session always goes well. So, like, that can kind of get pushed around. Like, if your best training day is Monday, probably don't come in and do, like, your best event.
Yes.
Because obviously it's going to be fucking great.
Yeah.
But then Tuesday is going to be terrible. So, like,
Yeah.
prioritize, like, your weaknesses, but obviously still train your strengths.
Yeah, and like hierarchy
some
of
extent.
like if the hierarchy of events is if you have a surplus of overhead strength and the event is like there's something else before it, then maybe you back that up. Or if the whole comp you have a surplus of strength, because we talk about surplus of strength a lot. Maybe like OSG towards the back end, like we built strength over that first block and then we started putting the events together that year, right? So you're kind of training the 2 events. There was 2 events over 3 days, so we'd kind of train those 2 events on separate day, like together on those days, you know what I mean? And that kind of works well when you actually are strong enough to hit all those loads.
Yeah.
You can hit the loads, so you can start to specifically get into that. But if you have an overhead and it's poor and you continue to train it down the line, or you have a deadlift that is really poor and you train it down the line or after yoke, whatever that looks like, the thing that is the weakest needs the most attention to bring it up. Do you know what I mean? You're only going to sacrifice your weak event by putting it later on in the field if it's already too weak for the competition. So, for Vicks, if your overhead suffered and you didn't have a good overhead, do you put it before, after yoke? Because it felt really hard in the competition? Well, no, because from a training exposure and getting better at an event long term, you just sacrifice your overhead press, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if most people train 4 days a week, most people 2 days a week train their overhead and their pressing and their upper body.
Yeah.
So a lot of people spend 50% of their training
On upper body.
week
Yeah.
on upper body and pressing.
Yeah.
And
And
probably
50% on the
50%
rest.
And then 50% of the sports suck at overhead still.
Yeah.
So, like, it's the same with bench. Like, powerlifters will bench, like, 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
They'll put so much more volume into bench to still have a poverty bench.
Yeah.
It's that hard to progress.
I I'm out.
Win the deadlift, win the powerlifting comp.
Win the battle. It's easier when there's only 3.
Oh, no, because the bench really like knocks you.
Yeah, but I mean,
Having
like
33% of the comp go bad versus 20%.
Yeah, but the only thing is with powerlifting that I have always been all right, because I've got a reasonable squat, right, is that, you know, you might fall 15 or 20 kilos behind someone on a bench, but fuck, I can promise you that I can probably make up 40 kilos of that on a deadlift, you know?
And that's what happens in strongman too, is like you'll beat somebody by like 10 kilos on an overhead, which is big.
Yeah.
But then they can turn around and beat you by like 20 or 30 on a deadlift.
Yeah, it's just annoying when it's only worth 1 point either way versus 30 kilos on total, you know?
But yeah, I think so many people, and it depends on background too.
Yes.
If you have a history of training in the gym and doing, say, bodybuilding, you have like a chest day, you have a shoulders day, you have a back day. So like there's a lot of upper body compared to lower body.
Yeah.
When you make the switch to like powerlifting performance, there's way more lower body.
There's no days. There's no days, you know. There's no like back
It's definitely
day.
more lower body.
Yeah, it is.
And then your upper body now has leg drive.
Yes.
Which cuts out
and if you do
your shoulder
strongman,
strength and your tricep strength.
Every day, every full body. If you're doing strongman, this is the hardest thing that
every
people
day you
don't
gotta pick
realize.
something up off the floor.
Programming,
even the overhead, you got to pick it up off the floor.
Always fucking. It's full body every day. This is the hardest thing that people don't realize. Like powerlifting and like coaching both. The recovery side of stuff, even though they'll whinge, like it's 2 upper body days and it's, you know, or 3 upper body days and it's bench, like squat and deadlift and like lower body days. Do you know what I mean? Or posterior chain days, where strongman is every day is full body. You're fucking tired from your deadlifts. Well, guess what? You got to pick up a fucking log. You got to clean it. Then you got to use your legs to throw it overhead. Like every day is hard. Every day is full body. So that's
said that to a few people. Like I've had quite a few clients where once their log starts getting like big and like heavy, like it's all relative, but like their log's getting so much better, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just struggling now, and it's like, yeah, because now you have to like deadlift 120 kilos, front squat 120 kilos, like just for your pressing work. Yeah, I'm like, and what are we doing for front squats later in the week? 130 kilos. Yeah. So I'm like, you've now doubled up on your front squats because your log got good. Whereas if your overhead's not strong, your recovery is a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless it's a behind the neck and a dumbbell and they're very lazy.
I mean, like
train for. Highly technical. Definitely don't want to do it after a yoke.
Recovery-wise, it's fine.
Recovery-wise, that whole comp is so chill.
Yeah, it is pretty chill. Yeah,
for 8 events, that is going to be very easy,
it is,
and you can probably train on Monday.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Well, that wraps us up. I think that's a good place to finish. I think we've covered everything. We'll see you in a fortnight's time. I hope you got a lot out of this podcast. I feel like that was pretty comprehensive, that one.
Usually they're the worst.
Our first, but like our first one back, I was like, that wasn't that great. You know, I feel like we put heaps into that, and I'll probably be dog shit. Anyways, we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in a fortnight's time. Please enjoy yourselves. Go get strong.